All right, so welcome to Tree Fodder Virtual Seminar hosted by Wellspring Forest Farm. My name is Steve Gabriel. I'm one of the co-stewards of our farm, and our farm is not just a place to grow trees and plants and products, but also we grow a lot of education. So this is one element of that. Our farm does research. We do outreach and education as well. And I'm really excited to be able to bring this program to you all via a Northeast SARE project. This is the culmination of a couple of years of tree fodder research, which I'll share in this first presentation a bit more about. And I'm going to just read the acknowledgement because these folks gave us the funding support to be able to do this work. So this material today is based upon work supported by the National Institute of Food and Agriculture, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, and this is through the Northeast Sustainable Agriculture Research and Education Program under subaward FNE 19930. So we're really excited to bring this to you. Just a quick overview of where we're headed today. We're going to do an hour until about 11 with some opening pieces, share a bit about the program today and about Silver Run Forest Farms Solidarity Project that you all have helped contribute greatly to. I really appreciate that. We'll talk about that a little bit, and I'll introduce sort of our perspective and use of tree fodder at Wellspring Forest Farm and give you a little teaser of some of the research results and what we're thinking about from this multi-year project. We'll take a break and then we'll come back at 11:15 Eastern with Lindsay Whistance from the Organic Research Center in the UK. Looking forward to that conversation. Break around 12:30 for lunch. Come back at 1:15, hang out with Eliza Greenman, talk all things mulberry. I got a lot of questions. Take another break, and then we'll end the afternoon with Ashley Conway of the Center for Agroforestry. Really had a great time having conversations with these folks in preparation for this, and I'm excited. And one of the things that was a clear theme is that we're all thinking about wanting to connect with others interested in tree fodder and sort of know that we all have to play a role in taking action to further the knowledge and expand our knowledge if we want to really get this to take hold. And so hopefully that's a theme that comes out from the work today. Okay, so our website, silvopasturebook.com, will sort of host and house everything related to this project and this event today. If you go to that website, there's a new page called Tree Fodder that has some materials already posted. The grant report will be linked from there. Right now, it just has the 2019 data update, and in early 2022, it'll have the full final report, just the way it kind of goes through the pipeline with SARE. So we're currently working at summarizing and interpreting some of the data that we've gotten. And Ashley, I know in particular this afternoon, we're going to hopefully dig into that a little bit, some of the details, so I can learn because I'm learning a lot about animal nutrition. We also have a Zotero reference library, so a lot of the tree fodder papers that we referenced and used in our research and work, it's available there. It's public, and if anyone has an interest in helping contribute to that library, I would love to collaborate. So that's an opportunity to build off of that that resource that's linked there. Once the grant is finalized, we'll have some species profiles for each of the species we worked with, as well as I have to add mulberry to the mix and maybe some others. We're going to have individual profiles with the data and some information. Those will also be posted to this tree fodder page. And then finally, of course, everyone's asking, where are these recordings going to be? We're going to post all the main content recordings to YouTube, as well as the Q&A sessions as separate recordings. And we'll embed those all on the website here, but you can also find them on the Wellspring Forest Farm YouTube channel. All right, and then one more housekeeping thing, and then we're going to dive into content and sort of framing for the day. I'm involved with two efforts right now to do some surveying of folks engaged with agroforestry. The first on the top, and I know Ashley Bridge is here. She's going to post the link to the press release and a link to the survey in the chat. If you're in the Northeast USA and have any relationship to integration of trees, livestock, and forages, we are seeking to find those folks, identify them, and ask a couple questions just to inventory who's out there doing that work. You may or may not identify with the word silvopasture, but the integration of those elements is what we're looking for. And curious to get feedback on. And this is for a project with the the National Agroforestry Center to do some education work with silvopasture in the Northeast. So you can read more about that at the link, and I have both of these surveys linked also on the homepage of our silvopasture book website. Other surveys, if you're in New York State in particular, and have any relationship to a piece of land, whether you're farming it, stewarding it, squatting on it, anything, doesn't matter, and have an interest in agroforestry, we're looking for folks to respond to a survey about your awareness and interest in agroforestry practices. This is going to help our Cornell-based agroforestry team continue to, I guess, hopefully develop projects in response to those needs, justify funding, and kind of sort of articulate the scope of agroforestry currently and into the future for the state of New York. So if you fall into either or both of those categories, I'd really encourage you to take a minute. Both surveys are relatively short and straightforward, and it'll really help our collective efforts. There's a lot of cool stuff happening with agroforestry. It just feels like even just in the last 6 months, a lot of new projects, a lot of funding going towards it. And so there's real momentum, and we want to build on that and learn from that. So appreciate your attention if you fit those categories to help us do that. Okay, let's take a moment. I want to do some acknowledgement. The first part of this content is really to acknowledge both the land that we're inherently talking about, all the different places we might be broadcasting, tuning in from. I know folks signed up for this event internationally, many parts of the world. And also, I want to acknowledge the wisdom inherent in when we're talking about agroforestry, silvopasture, tree fodder, and these things. So I just want to sit with this for a minute, and it's been really important in our practices as land stewards to grapple and sit with and understand and go beyond just acknowledging something. But that is really the first step, is to see and recognize and lean into the complicated past of land anywhere you are in the world, and the stories of that land and the peoples who inhabit the lands and steward those lands and have stewarded those lands and still do today. And so for where we're coming from, we are on unceded Gaiokono or Cayuga lands. Cayuga are known as part of the Six Nations or the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. And we're really blessed to be right in the heart of that nation's territory. And we're blessed to learn some of the words from people from that community, and to be in conversation about how to support their sovereignty and their preservation and rematriation of culture and all that comes with it. And we do that in response to their interest and their wishes and their desires, and in conversation. So we're really grateful to have that opportunity. We of course live in what is now known as New York State, but this area has such a rich history of stewardship that relates to agroforestry, even though it was never called that. If you're in any other part of the world, there's a really wonderful project I want to mention that is a growing, evolving, beautiful mapping project that names lands based on the indigenous peoples that traditionally stewarded those areas. You can visit native-land.ca to view that map and see. And if you're in a part where it has not been labeled yet, I encourage you to dig in, do the research, and help contribute. It's a really beautiful project to help see and name and look at lines and boundaries in different ways. So I want to just acknowledge the wisdom inherent in when we talk about agroforestry, that agroforestry is a relatively new term. It names practices that integrate trees and forests and farming, but agroforestry was not always called agroforestry, and just because something isn't named as that, it doesn't mean it doesn't have the same knowledge base or even a deeper knowledge base that we not only benefit from, draw upon, but also want to recognize how that might have been hidden or tucked away in a troubling past. And I've been blessed to be in relationship with a forest mentor for many years, who's helped me see and understand how indigenous perspectives bring a very different relationship and a very different understanding of what it means to be on land and to steward and to take care of land. And in our own process of sort of looking at how capitalism and colonialism have infected our worldviews and the ways that we perceive value in the landscape and value in certain species, the way we name things, sometimes violently, like invasive. Lots of different ways that this shows up, and hopefully that's woven throughout the conversation. But we just want to acknowledge and kind of sit with the fact that this wisdom is based in indigenous wisdom, and we're grateful for the specific ways that we know that shows up, and we're sad for and grieve for the ways that that doesn't show up because we can't access it because of a challenging past in many ways where that history was not held and valued. Just want to sit with that for a minute. The other piece I want to add to that is, thanks for taking a minute with that. We all need a lot of help. We are in a dire situation with a changing climate and all the dynamics that brings to different parts of the world. And indigenous communities have experience surviving and thriving and being resilient in the face of overwhelming odds. And I think that leaning on and learning from in respectful ways the practices for adaptation, for resilience from these communities as they're willing to, if they're willing to, is a really important opportunity for us to think about how we're going to collectively move forward in the future. And one resource I want to highlight is a film called Inhabitants, which I think frames this really well and talks about indigenous solutions to climate change that are already happening on the ground and all over the US and North America as examples of what many communities are doing and have been doing for such a long time. And so I really encourage you to check that out as a great resource. And finally, I want to specifically acknowledge the African diaspora, Black farmers, Black communities all over the world, but specifically recognizing that in the US, agriculture and land and wealth and economy is really rooted in the work and labor of Black and African American individuals, and not only the labor, but the wisdom that was transferred and was a way to develop an agriculture that succeeded in North America, in the South in particular, that a lot of Afro-Indigenous agricultural practices were the reasons that some of these crops that form the basis of the new American economy, why they emerged and why they succeeded. And that knowledge has not been acknowledged, supported, or honored in many ways. And I think that's a really important part of this to dig into. And Farming While Black is a really wonderful book to dig into that, to examine that, and to reflect on it. And what I encourage in this is to let the sort of complicated constellation of feelings that I feel and that you might feel in the wake of that lack of acknowledgement and sort of the hard history that, especially in the US, we have to grapple with, how that hits us. We need to sit with that. We need to lean into it, honor it, acknowledge it, and look towards how we're going to build something different into the future. And so there's another resource for you to dig into that as well. But to me, the foundation of thinking about land and relationship to land, tree fodder being one manifestation of that, is really grounded in these pieces of learning and doing over time. And one more thing I'll share is part of that journey for us has also been to dig into our own ancestry and our own past and where we come from, and recognize that we're going to talk about a series of practices today, and agroforestry as a whole, and many of the sort of regenerative ag and things. We talk about these practices, but we have to remember these practices are more than just a set of techniques or strategies. They're embedded in something much richer, and especially something embedded in the relationship of people to landscape. And they're embedded in that is a lot of tradition, and a lot of that has dissolved, and a lot of that's been lost. And we're often hyper focused on how to do something, but not necessarily always the why or the deeper cultural elements that manifest in that. And yeah, and so one of the ways I've been able to gratefully express that and see that is in learning about some of my own heritage, which comes from parts of the UK and Scotland and Ireland, and learn the traditional agroforestry technique of hedge laying. Here's a hedge. We'll talk about this at our farm, and learning and holding these tools and learning some of the stories and songs and practices associated with something that's centuries old is a really powerful experience. And I don't want to lose that when we just kind of talk about technique and we look at data, which is an important role to have in this whole conversation, but just to recognize the sort of cultural weaving, the cultural intricacies, and all the elements that come together to do what we call agroforestry, right? So I just want to sit with all that for just one more minute, and then we're going to hear a little bit about the cause we have all supported through this program, and then talk about Wellspring Farm and our tree fodder efforts. So. Okay, so thank you for that. However that sat with you, I appreciate that you took the time to do that. What I want to do for the moment now, and it looks like, thanks for someone giving me the heads up in the chat, that I'm going to check in on some folks that might be trying to log in and may not have the link. So I'm going to let my good friend Jonathan share about the community solidarity agroforestry piece as one way to manifest, I think, some action in the world about as we're grounded in this bigger context. And so I'll turn it over to Jonathan to share about that and share how the money we've raised through this program is going to be able to support a lot of wonderful efforts. So Jonathan, you're with us, I believe.
Yeah, I'm here.
Hey, morning.
Hey, morning. Thanks, friend Steve. That was awesome. It was really beautiful. And hey to Elizabeth and Aiden somewhere in the background. Steve, should I turn on my camera while I'm talking, or would it be helpful to just keep it off? Just want to check in.
Fully up to you. I actually meant to turn mine on and forgot. So okay. However it feels good, go for it.
All right, I'll turn it on. Oh, well, I won't, because it says the host stopped it. So I'll keep going. Well, thank you very much for this opportunity. Wellspring and the Finger Lakes feel like a kind of home after I lived in the sugar bush there for a season a few years ago. Feeling really, really honored and humbled by the support that you all have offered. Thank you. And very excited for a necessary conversation about how we feed life with trees. Hopefully there'll be a lot of good fodder for conversation through all this. Just want to give a short, quick intro to some of our work down here in the Shenandoah Valley of Virginia, which is land that was stewarded for a long time by Algonquin and Siouan and Iroquoian cultures, and as Steve named, also through the African diaspora, and also remnants of European cultures in the onslaught of colonial invasion. There's a deep, twisted, beautiful, resistant history in this place that we're figuring out how to be a part of that. But I'm one of the co-stewards, one of the co-caretakers, along with Cornelius Deppy, who's on this call as well, of Silver Run Forest Farm. We're a riparian nursery and folk school rooted in love and living soil. And riparian because we grow along the banks of two runs, of two creeks down here in the Shenandoah Valley. And the roots of what we do in love and living soil sprout out as agroforestry, as watershed health, and as restorative justice. And we see all those as orienting us to trying to farm in the image of the forest and remediate the toxins that are polluting our souls and our society and our soil, whether that's chemical leaching in our watersheds or racial capitalism and settler colonialism in our economies and our culture, and that these are all deeply connected to one another. We can't separate them out. And so what kind of holistic practice can we have that sees the already integrated reality of these things? And our work looks like multiple ways, but the main thing I want to talk about for just a minute is the nursery. We grow a whole lot of beautiful and useful trees and other plants that cross-pollinate food sovereignty and ecological restoration, and all of them are forms of food and medicine for land and culture. Bare root plants propagated with a whole lot of different polyculture practices that are hybridizing gardening and gathering and foraging and farming. And the beautiful challenge of this work, as I'm sure many of you know, is that we are constantly swimming in abundant saplings. We're growing way more than we're able to sell directly often. And that seems like the way with the gift economy of trees. There's always more than enough to go around. So each nursery season for several years now, we've been shipping hundreds and hundreds of free trees through the threads of radical underground networks that we've been forming over multiple years of trusting relationships to community farms and budding nurseries and grassroots organizations all across the Great Eastern Forest. And really these trusting relationships have felt like some of the most important and satisfying parts of our work. And it really feels like the aim of our nursery as a forest farm, that we're just here to skim the cream from the land to share as much as we can. Over the years, some friends have offered monetary support to help us cover the cost of the shipping and handling of those trees and transportation costs to make sure we can get to people when we have a carload of plants for folks. And that's basically what your registration fee is helping us do. So in short, you're buying trees from us that we're going to give to other people. We're going to share plants with or without monetary support. It's a core part of what we're doing, but the monetary solidarity of these registration fees, there's also an inventory item on our website where people can purchase into this thing, makes it sustainable for us to do it by covering shipping and handling and transportation costs, and also helping to support our livelihood and our reparations tithe. We have an internal tax on ourselves to redistribute 10% of our annual income every year to the same kinds of crews of people all across the Great Eastern Forest, often as a way to help keep wealth local. Money's coming in from all over the place to purchase our plants. And so how do we move that money to actually feed the ground that we live in? Also that we can send free trees through this effort to feed food sovereignty and feed ecological restoration, led by a host of land-loving, liberating growers and movers and shakers and medicine makers. And that's looked like many different efforts, which we could share more about. For Cornelius and me, you could private message us. One or both of us will be on here throughout part of the day, or send us an email. We'd love to talk more about it. But we've been jokingly calling this our own version of a CSA, but instead of a community supported agriculture, which it still is kind of like that, it's a community solidarity agroforestry. And this effort of the registration fee or the inventory item on our website prevents it from just being some sort of external charitable afterthought, and actually incorporates gift into a reliable and vital and integral part of our economy, so we can keep growing and tending and shipping trees for free to people in places who need them and desire them, are going to make beautiful use of them. So this tree fodder course today is siphoning cash carbon our way so we can convert it into abundant trees. We're kind of thinking of it as something like mycelial mutual aid, or fungal finance, or fiscal photosynthesis, or maybe a deciduous donation, but all of it is a part of our attempt to imitate a gift economy of trees. Trees give away a quarter to half of what they produce when they eat sunlight to feed the radical underground of the soil. And that's what we're trying to figure out how to do. We're just trying to be as generous as the trees that we grow. So thank you for using this conversation about tree fodder to feed this work. I'll pass it back to you, Steve.
Awesome, thank you so much. Yeah, there's lots more to dig into, and I encourage you all to check out website and share this concept and project, and potentially think about ways this can show up in your work as well, to redistribute and rematriate and all those good things. And I need you to write down all those wonderful alliterations you just shared, because those are awesome. So thank you for that. I'm just going to stop the recording.